My name is Alex Amini. The domain of painting, I think, is the idea of recording, which it could borrow from tape recorders, video recorders, cameras. The canvas becomes a site in which some kind of a manifestation takes place, and this becomes a recording device. Not like a photograph, not like a photogram, but something that gets impregnated with essence. I went to Pratt Institute, the School of Architecture. At Pratt, then later at Cooper, the influence of art was very much stressed. And that's what made it worth pursuing, because this promise that you have a kind of a systemic way of dealing with art and maybe needing something to hold on to was nice.
So, I mean, when this thing cools, it kind of forms a skin on top. So it's nice to just keep it. It's going to be difficult to pour without splattering.
It's creating the condition in which something might happen. I suppose that would be ideally what life should be. It's a shift in being, I suppose, is what happens, and that's what you're waiting for. And sometimes it comes in the work, and sometimes it doesn't.
Here, what's happening is this is cornstarch that you get from the supermarket. You leave it on there, that's a puddle. It cracked, and the dye was poured, and it seeped through the cracks.
You know it's going, and you're synchronized, and your body feels it. I don't know how much the thinking is in there, but at some point you're dancing, I guess.
And here, this is a similar pour that we did there, except I let the cornstarch dry. Whoa, that could have stopped. You see, I mean, there's like several layers, but we're going to go all the way just to see. This idea of a manufacturing of sorts, I guess that comes from architecture, in which you're kind of making something, but not piece by piece. It's kind of like elements come together and they're generated, almost like a magnetic field, or like some kind of natural force lines which automatically produce something. There's a confluence, and it makes things generate and come into being, come into formation. So we're talking about the difference between these two types of paintings. Fundamentally, that this was produced on the table, and given the dimensions of the table, it's done in sections.
You wet the whole thing, and it adheres to the surface, so it becomes smooth, and your cup doesn't lift the fabrics.
So it becomes kind of like attached, and it creates kind of a permanent field because everything is wet. So as the paint is introduced from the top, it begins to interact with the underneath surface. This is new body of work that's going to generate potentially. What's new is we have the ground instead of the table. I work on the whole thing, and I've found a way to make it padded enough to where the roughness of the ground doesn't hurt it. The whole thing has to get wetted so it adheres to the ground, right? And then I'm experimenting with other layers on top to see if there's a transference of information from one painting to the other. Ideally, you will have so many traces that slowly build up a kind of a self-manifestation of sorts.
It's miraculous if you can do it. You're gonna do it not because other people have to like it or because it has to be this or that. You're gonna do it because you don't know what else to do. You're gonna do it because you might discover something. You have to go into it thinking that you could fail completely. And at times it really feels that way. At times it feels like a burden. I mean, it would be really nice just to be able to let it all go and start with a clean slate, you know, and not have this ballast of material and weight. I mean, it's a dilemma. The work is a way of being, a way of relating to things. So you work because it teaches you something. It's the most direct way of being with the elements of life without the restraint of purpose. You can sense something might happen if only you have enough patience. What we're trying to do in painting is how to practice being open. But the main event is always what happens, and you almost have nothing to do with it.
So my bag of tricks is to move the cups around, but really what's happening is the interaction of the surface, the fabric, the tension, the suction of the water, the accidents, what penetrates through and what doesn't. The real artist is the chance, the nature that always brings its own magical appearance and disappearance. Also a new piece just discovered yesterday. Two pieces that actually fit together.
I guess it's this idea of some kind of a ready-made object that you can work with. Instead of having to, you know, question every mark, you have a couple of things and you just play with it. It's like a game of pool, it could be a game of ping pong. Whatever you want to associate it with, that's all fine. It can come and go. I guess what remains is fascination.